Hello, friends. The 1141st day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The Russian army is developing an offensive on the Lyman section of the Kharkiv front. The map of the Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State shows that the Russians have advanced in Kateryivka and are advancing towards Borova. Let me remind you that Russian telegram channels yesterday announced the capture of Kateryivka and published a video with their flag from there. A fighter with the call sign Mukhnoy writes that the Lyman section is becoming a very difficult direction of the front. After the Russians took up positions in Kateryivka, they began to rapidly move to the assault towards Novi. The enemy is also active to the east of the settlement of Zelina Dolina, where their movement should be expected in the near future. Southeast of Yampolivka, the Russians are conducting assaults in the direction of Torsky. If the enemy enters this settlement and captures it completely, it will pose a threat to the Ukrainian armed forces in the Serebryansky forests, and they will have to pull back from there so as not to be locked in. Thus the Russians are now pressing along the Siversky Donets River towards Grehorivka. In the Kursk region, the Deep State telegram channel transferred most of the village of Guivo, which the Russian authorities announced yesterday, to the gray zone. The Reuters agency stated in this regard that Russia is close to restoring full control over its territory in the Kursk region. The publication referred to a video with Russian soldiers from Guivo, published by the Russian Defense Ministry. The footage shows a soldier waving a Russian flag from the window of a heavily damaged Orthodox church and Russian troops conducting door-to-door checks in search of Ukrainian fighters who may be hiding there. Russian telegram channels claim that fighting is currently ongoing for the two remaining villages in the Kursk region, Olshnya and Gorno. The Wall Street Journal writes that North Korean troops played an important role in Russia's offensive in the Kursk region. Since returning to the front in February, they have become some of the most valuable fighters in the Russian army, Ukrainian soldiers and analysts told the newspaper. The North Koreans left the battlefield in early January after suffering heavy losses, and then returned, but cooperating better with the Russians. Their commanders sit with the Russians and relay instructions in Korean, a Ukrainian military intelligence officer said. On the ground, the North Koreans understand basic Russian, which they were supposed to learn in training. Their main advantage has been their willingness to advance under heavy fire and drone strikes. They adapted to the drones fairly quickly, attacking only in small groups and outflanking the Ukrainian armed forces. With their huge mass rushing forward, they began to retake the positions. Why are the Koreans the ones going on the offensive? They are better prepared psychologically and better prepared physically. In Kursk, they fulfilled their mission, said the commander of the 225th Assault Regiment of the Ukrainian Army Shuriv, whose unit was one of the first to enter the Kursk region in August 2024. Ukrainian sources tell the publication that the Koreans had detailed reports analyzing the clashes and a description of the equipment they have to deal with. The Wall Street Journal points out that this experience is now spreading throughout the North Korean army, which is causing great concern in Seoul and Washington. Commander-in-Chief Sirsky gave an interview about the prospects of war. In it, he said that Russia has launched a new offensive in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. I can say that Zelensky is absolutely right, and this offensive has actually already begun. Because for several days, almost a week, we have seen an almost doubling of the enemy's offensive actions in all major directions, said the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to him, Russia is seeking to create a buffer zone in the Kharkiv, Sumy, and Chernihiv regions. At the same time, Sirsky admitted that military aid from the United States to Ukraine has been decreasing recently. Support from partners, of course, plays a decisive role, especially when the United States helped us. Currently, aid from the United States has decreased, and the main aid comes from our partners in Europe, the Commander-in-Chief said. When asked whether Ukraine would cope with the help of Europe alone if Trump completely stopped supplies, he answered in the affirmative. Yes, of course. Support from partners is mandatory, but we need to rely on our own strength, Syrskyi said, and added that Ukraine is developing its own production of artillery, electronic warfare systems, and drones. Let me remind you that Zelensky used to say that without U.S. aid, Kyiv would have little chance. We will have little chance of surviving without the support of the United States. I think this is very important, critically important, Zelensky said in an interview with NBC in mid-February. In this context, it is significant that immediately after the suspension of American military aid, Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire, although it had previously strongly rejected this idea. The last time was in the Oval Office, where Zelensky spoke out against a ceasefire on March 1. On March 4, the United States suspended aid to Ukraine, and on March 11, Kyiv agreed to a complete ceasefire. This dating shows that American supplies, including intelligence, are critically important for the Ukrainian armed forces. Regarding the forces, Syrskyi outlined the numerical objectives of mobilization. He said that 30,000 people need to be called up per month. Answering the question of how to attract 6 million men who have not updated their data in territorial recruitment centers to the army, Syrskyi said that conscripts need to be digitized. First of all, we need digitalization. When the process is digitalized, we will know all our citizens and where they are, the commander-in-chief replied. He noted that Russia increases the number of its armed forces by 8,000 to 9,000 every month due to contract soldiers who voluntarily go to war, and now, according to Syrskyi, the number of the Russian group is 623,000 people. That is, based on these data, Russia sends 8,000 to 9,000 people more to the front every month than it drops out due to death and injury. Syrskyi also spoke out against demobilization before the end of the war. According to him, if a law is passed that allows demobilization from the army after 36 months of service, the army could lose a third of its personnel.
Friends, I want to develop and strive for higher quality content, but my 2009 computer does not allow me to do this. If you have the opportunity to help me buy a new computer and make my dream come true, I will be very grateful to you. You will find the link in the description under the video and in the pinned comment. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.